Okay. Okay, this is March 5th, 2012, and we are interviewing. Would you like to give your name and your age if you'd like to?
Do you need the middle name?
No.
No. Nancy Weidner. Nancy Beck Weidner.
Beck Weidner, okay. And you're saying you were born in Elmore. Where'd you used to live?
Home. We didn't go to the hospital in those days.
Oh, yeah?
They threw me on the kitchen porcelain table. That started the crying, I guess. Yeah.
And where did you live?
On Augusta Street, the street that goes to school. Walk to school.
You want to tell me a little bit about your family?
I had an older brother. He's now deceased, Gordon. He was 7 years older, so he was all excited when a little girl came along. And then I have a sister that's 2.5 years younger than me, Peggy. She lives in Dayton.
Anything about your parents? That you
They
remember?
were married over 50 years because I remember their 50th celebration, but they're both gone now. And my dad was a banker, worked at Toledo Trust. My mother was at home most of the time. Like in those days, they definitely were, you know. So
What were their names?
Edna Gonski Beck and Harold John Beck. I think his mother was a Meyer, but anyhow.
Yeah, I remember Beck being a pretty old family
yes.
here.
There's
so
a lot of Becks around, so
Yes.
watch it. Although they're getting fewer and fewer, but we're tough. We're a tough group.
Is there anything that you remember from your childhood that things you used to play or people
We
used to know?
roller skate, and we'd get to go to the edge of the street. We thought that was really far from home. Now when I look at it, yeah. And I remember roller skating in the fall with the leaves. They'd be burning, and you'd roll through the leaves. And
Hopefully not
the
with their
smell
burning.
of the burned leaves. And now, of course, that's not allowed, but that was so good. Yeah, so remember that. And we'd play games. We'd play kick the can. The neighborhood would get out, and then we'd have a can. We'd kick it, and we'd all run. And we did that on the street every night. We didn't have TV and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Did just home games and stuff.
Do you remember any of your friends from back then?
I remember Betty Crozier lived around the corner from me, so we would walk and meet at the corner. And it wasn't that far to go. Hers was half a block around that too. But that was safe to go that far and back home. Yeah, I remember playing with her and Keith Cruzy, who was a dry cleaners. But then he's gone too. Oh, a lot of people I know are gone.
We'd be fortunate to be.
Yes. I said the Becks are tough. Yeah, they are. So, yeah, and the neighbors would always sit out in the front porch and holler across the street, or they'd be on the phone and tie that up. But there was, a lot of communication in your neighborhood.
Do you remember any of your neighbors? Did they do anything
Clara
interesting?
Barnes, Dora Coleman, who was, she wasn't an old maid. She was married but divorced real quick. But she
was a
was
teacher,
we call her
wasn't
the
she?
old maid school teacher. You probably heard of Dora. And Leona Reynolds and Christine Heller. She was an old maid, but yeah. So anyhow, yeah. And the Cruzies, Keith Cruzy and his folks, Elaine and Ronald, they lived next door. And then there was Har. Can't think of their name. But they lived across the street, and they didn't have children. But yeah, you knew everybody. And I babysat for John Waters, who plays the tuba. Or now he's the director of the Ohio State Band.
Oh, really?
Yes, he lived right across the street, and I would babysit for him. Yeah.
Did he set you up with any tickets ever?
No, I never even thought of that. That's been so long ago. I don't even know if he remembers me babysitting, because they lived right there. Yeah, but I did get him when I was in the church. I did get him to play his tuba at church, and we had a tuba quartet once at Christmas time. So yeah, he's always been a good kid. He's a great guy.
Nice.
Yes, so I was glad to know him.
Do you remember anything about the schools, either when you went or when your children went?
Well, they were different when my kids went because
Right.
they were both in Woodmore.
Yeah, they consolidated then, yeah.
They graduated with Woodmore. But I remember when I was a freshman, that was a big year for us girls because then the boys from Benton, they decided if they wanted to come to Elmore or Oak Harbor. So we get new boys in school. That was fun.
When was that?
When you were a freshman.
Me. What year was that?
I graduated in 51, so it had to be in 47.
Okay.
Yeah, in 47. And when they became freshmen, they would,
they
otherwise
just
I guess
decided.
they were at Greytown School or someplace, some
Okay.
small school. And then they could go to either district. So that was highlight of my
New boys to pick from.
Yeah, new boys to pick from, although it didn't really do me much good, but that's okay. Yeah. But, and it was so different than it is now with kids. So different. Yeah. We just didn't have half of the stuff they have, and I don't know what half they're talking about anymore. But as I told my friends, they don't know what we're talking about either, because we forget names, things like that. So we say, well, remember that. And yeah, they know, so we can talk, but nobody knows who we're talking about. But we don't know, we can't remember the name,
Right.
things like that, yeah. So
Do you remember any of the teachers you used to have?
I remember Miss Shilasky. I assume she was an old maid. She taught me how to knit in the 5th grade.
Well, they had a knitting class?
No,
Or was this
just
off
probably
time?
recess time or something. I don't remember. And I remember sitting in school. It was either in the 4th or 5th grade when TV came into existence. And I remember sitting there and looking out the window and figuring, how's that getting in here? I just couldn't comprehend how that would work. I still am rather naive, but I mean, we didn't have those things. I remember the old cars where you put your hand out left or right.
Oh, your singles, yeah?
Yeah, and all that kind of silly stuff. Yeah. So they have improved. Cars have improved. They're much nicer things, yeah. Oh, yeah. When you think, you do remember a lot of things, but you forget a lot too. So. But this was the good days,
Yeah.
so we say.
Can you tell me a little bit about your current family? How'd you meet your husband?
Well, he lived right down the street. He's 5 years older than me, and he's passed on by now. But he lived right down the street, and I really didn't know him because him being 5 years older, and his parents both died, so his grandma was raising the family. And there was Warren and Betty and Norma left when the last parent died. So Bob, my husband, went into the service so he'd have checks to send home to support the kids. So he quit school when he was like a junior, which a lot of them did during that war. And he was in the service, and I didn't know him till after he got out. Actually, I was a streetwalker. In those days, us couple girls would walk down the streets at night. And
It doesn't mean the same thing now.
no, it's nothing like that. But anyhow, we were walking down the street I live on, and him and John Bowman, who was from the country, and Bob had this little green Olds coupe, and they stopped and wanted to know, it was with Phyllis Crozier, if we'd want to ride. So we argued who was getting in the back. But that's the first time I met her. But we went together over a year and a half and then got married. So
And when did you get married?
about a year and a half later, in May 1st of, oh dear, what is the year? I don't know, 54, I guess. Yeah, I was out of school and had a job and all. So I worked at Sun Oil in the credit union. In fact, I'm so old, I was the original credit union girl.
Oh, really?
They started with just me and Bob Sager at the credit union at Sun Oil, where people are still working. Yeah. But now the credit union's has their own building, and
I seen.
yeah, that's where I started.
And have you always worked there? Did you have any other jobs?
No, I went to school. I went to work the day I graduated from high school. I mean, there's no fooling around in your family. You get out, get to work.
Yeah.
But no, actually, the Waters family, John's, his aunt worked at Sun Oil, and so she knew of me. So in those days, they had a pool in the summertime when people would take vacations, and so it was like a secretarial pool. So I was left to get in that way, and that's where I started. And I was working for different people, and also once they said, well, then next week you work for Mr. Heron. Well, I didn't know who Mr. Heron was till the next day when I went, and he had carpet on his floor. And I knew I was at the big shot. So I was secretary to him for a while. And then when this credit union was starting up in the fall, and so I got that job. And that's how I got in there.
Nice.
And the interesting part is, I also have, at that time, out of a magazine you could write for pen pals, so you tell your interests and things like that. So I got this pen pal from Australia, who I still communicate with, who worked also and had worked the same Burroughs bookkeeping machine that I was using. And there's also a town called Elmore near where she lives in Australia. And she sent me things from that, and that was putting them on the store windows downtown.
Oh, neat.
And we're still corresponding. Yeah.
Isn't
And
that
she
funny?
was into music. She played the organ and stuff too, just like I did. Yeah, it was really strange.
She's like your twin from across the world.
Yeah. And of course, we were all going to go travel back and forth, but we never got that far. That's a long way apart. And her husband was a school teacher, and they have one boy who's into theater. And so Jason, and yeah, I still get, we don't communicate as much anymore, but, and she'll call me. I don't call her because I don't know how to call Australia. She says it's real cheap. She knows how to do it, so she calls me about twice a year maybe.
That's really
So
nice.
that was interesting.
Huh.
But she's not as healthy as I am. She's got health problems, so that's tough. Yeah.
You want to tell me a little bit about your children?
Julie's the oldest. We got married, and I worked 3 years because we wanted to build a house. So I worked 3 years, and then I got pregnant. And then when you get pregnant, you quit work in those days. And she was born in 1958. She's a school teacher. She went to Bowling Green, and she got a job down in Lancaster, Ohio. And in those days, Lancaster was a flourishing town. They had the glass company down there, and it was a very, very busy and nice town. But when the glass company went out now, it's a very poor area, and she has, it's tough with the students she's had. She's still teaching learning disabilities, although I think they call it something different now. But that's what she's still teaching with the little kids, and she loves it. But anyhow, but a lot of her parents of her children are in jail, stuff like that. It's really sad, and all the schools need replacing, but it's such a poor community. I don't know how they can do it, but anyhow, so that's where she's at. She has 2 sons. Well, she has a husband, and he lost his job a couple years ago because it went to India, the coal company. So now he works in North Carolina. That's where he found work, and so he flies home every other weekend.
Oh, wow. I'm surprised they didn't just move over there.
How do you know how long that job's going to
That's
last?
true.
She's got a job with coverage, insurance, and they have a nice home, and they have their friends. So you just don't pick up and go. And the boys were still in school. She has 2 boys. The youngest now is going to graduate this spring. They go to Pickerington. They live in Pickerington. And the oldest one just graduated from high school, or college, I'm sorry, and in business, and now he's working for Morgan Stanley. He just got a job. He's just getting out into the world, finding out what insurance and groceries, and they're letting him go. They're weaning him. So they have 2 children. And then I have a son who's 3 years younger, Jamie. He lives in Perrysburg. He married another Jamie. She's a girl. And he didn't get married till he was like 39. We thought he'd be a bachelor. So therefore, their child, which was born about 5 years later, late in life. So anyhow, they have this little girl, and she's called Johnny. And he flies. He's a pilot with U.S. Air. Drives to Detroit, catches a plane to Philadelphia, and that's where he flies out of. And now he's flying international, which he likes better than flying in the States because there you're up and down and all that stuff. But it's not the glamorous, just like doctors. It's not like it was before. After 9/11, they lost everything. So, and he just became a pilot in the spring, and then in the summer he had open heart surgery, and in the fall they demoted him to first officer because they laid off so many people. So, but he loves to fly. He's a flying bug. He always did. So we only have 2 children and 3 grandchildren. Johnny's just in the 1st grade now. Yeah, they live in Perrysburg, so they're closer.
That sounds like a nice family still.
Yeah. But they're finding it's kind of rough at that age being a parent. They go to school and all the others are younger. It's different. But anyhow, yeah, it's worth it, I guess. Yeah, but it's tough on me, too, because I'm not a young grandma. I used to with the boys, could get down on the floor. I can get down now, but I can't always get up. So that's, because I had both knees replaced. I'm getting my 2nd round of parts, and then I'll be all set.
Yeah, you'll be perfect then.
Yes, right, yeah. So, yeah.
Do you remember anything about the businesses that used to be
Oh,
uptown?
yeah.
All the different ones that went in and out?
Remember the Kroger store? And Mr. Kroger, Mr. Wendt ran the Kroger store, And he lived down the street on Augusta Street, right close to the school. And he'd walk to work. I remember a little short guy, I remember him. And Albert Wise had the grocery store kind of where the coffee shop is now on the corner. And my brother worked there. And he cut the bologna and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, they had all kinds of good stuff to eat. In the Five and Dime, you'd walk in there and Mr. Rader would follow you around for fear you'd pick something up. Yeah, they were nice. I remember all. Yeah, I remember. And the ice cream shop, Guthrie's ice cream shop, that was good. That was over near, I think, the insurance company next to the bank, somewhere in there. That was there. Yeah, and Hartman's, we never would go in there because they served beer. That's probably where the Village Inn is, I think.
Okay.
Could be, yeah.
It always was a bar, huh?
And another interesting thing, the antique shop that's in the middle of the street right now, that white bric-a-brac stuff that you'll see in that building came off of my grandma Beck's porch
Oh, really?
in the country, yeah. They bought that, and you go in sometime and see those little white things. That's off of Grandma Beck's porch.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So, and my grandma Gonski lived out on 105. So we bought, and so she had this farm, and we called it the Mary Jane, that little trolley that used to go by. And so we bought the end lot of this piece. Their farmhouse was here, and then there was one lot and our lot. And anyhow, it was raised for the Mary Jane, because that was kind of dippy like that. So it was raised like this, and our lot was like that. Well, then we had to slope it down to the road when we built it. But so we built there, we built a White House, and then we put a swimming pool in for the kids. Well, then the kids left home, we didn't need the pool anymore, and we wanted a brick house, so we didn't have the maintenance, so we built a brick house next to it, and then we said that's where Denny Steinball is now. I don't know if you know him. Well, he lives there, and we said, well, we didn't like the neighborhood, so we moved. But then when my husband had a heart attack, we bought a lot closer to town and bought that, and that's where we built in 1990.
Do you know why the streetcars were called Mary Janes? I've heard them called that.
I don't know, because when I read articles, I don't hear it called Mary Jane, but that's what we are called. I always heard them called. I never rode the Mary Jane. I rode the train, the last train ride out of Elmore was that 1951?
Yeah.
Yep. I remember that. That's the year I graduated from high school. Yeah.
You were on the train to Toledo then?
Yeah. My grandma was in her old costume. Yeah, we have pictures of that. Yeah. Yeah, my grandma Gonski was quite those older ladies, they had fun. They'd have parties any occasion, Groundhog Day, whatever. And once they had a dress-up Halloween party, and she invited like 12 ladies. Well, I dressed up too, so there was 13, and nobody knew which one was the odd one. That was a fun time. But they loved to have their parties. And then there was Zale Peterson that lived on Toledo Street. She belonged to the Methodist Church. And she'd always sit in church and she'd always belch. But anyhow, if she'd hear the funeral bell ringing, she'd run to church. She'd go to the church because there was a funeral. Yeah. So, they were funny ladies in those days. Well, we're funny ladies today. So, but they knew how to have fun. Hard workers.
Did your grandma have any interesting stories that she'd pass along to you?
I remember when they lived out in the country and the thrashers would come in to eat. You know, they'd be working out, and oh my goodness, the table would be full of food, and the thrasher dinners to feed them. Yeah. I don't know, they used to like antiques, and I don't know, they just party and dance. In fact, they owned the schoolhouse, one of the old schoolhouses out on, I think it's either Stangy or Greytown Road, I'm not sure. And it's where Jan James live. You know, Jan James from they live in that schoolhouse. And so we used to have dances on Saturday night. And my dad would play the sax, mother would play the piano, and different ones would play instruments. And then everybody'd bring food, and they'd have this table spread with food, and we'd square dance, and then we'd go and eat. And yeah, I remember that as a kid.
They should still do those.
Yes,
It'd be fun.
yes. So that was... Yeah, so then I don't know, they finally sold it, because they were Gonskis. There were a lot of Gonskis in the area. Yeah, so we're also related to the Luckies. this because Barbara Stange, that's the Luckies, related to, I don't know, everybody's kind of related.
Yeah, a little
around
bit.
here. Yeah, I don't know about you.
I'm not from here, so.
But do you have, aren't you from Genoa or not really? From
I grew up in Oregon,
Oh, okay.
but my grandmother lives here. She lives on 105, but she didn't move here till about the late 60s.
Now, what's her name?
Oberlin.
Oh, does she live right in the end of those homes?
Yeah, she lives at
Right.
Ersthausen and
Ersthausen
105.
Road, right
yeah.
in the court. Well, that's where I live, right in that development.
Oh, okay.
She's 1, 2. I'm the 4th house from her.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a snowman in the yard. Little snowman.
Oh, yeah, I think I've seen it.
Yeah, that's where I live. We bought that lot from Kim Henricks because they owned it, and then my husband had his heart attack, so we thought we better. I didn't want all that lawn to take care of and stuff, so we moved uptown, built that house, and thought that would last my lifetime. But it's 22 years old now, and things are wearing out, and I'm not. So, yeah, so I have to wait, fix what needs to go and fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Speaking of all those dances, do you remember the Elmore homecomings?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It used to be on Main Street, then it was on the side street back here. Yeah, and this is vaguely in my memory, but on Saturday nights, this is before even those homecomings, we used to all go to town, and they'd have a drawing, and then they'd be giving cars away.
Cars?
Yeah, well, you buy tickets.
Yeah.
You buy tickets. I think that maybe been during the homecomings. All the different communities would do that. You'd buy tickets and win a car. Yeah.
Nice.
But that's when cars were
Yeah.
1,500, 2,000. I know when I worked at the bank, I worked at Huntington, that I used to give car loans all the time, 6, 8, 10,000 high. And when they went over 10,000, I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. It's just amazing how things have changed.
What kind of things did they used to have at the homecomings?
What kind of what?
What kind of things did they have at the homecomings?
They'd have the rides and the food and stuff like that. And we'd walk around, see if we could find somebody looking around. But they don't appeal to me anymore. Not like they used to.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they have them like they used to either. Yeah. So it's a lot different. Well, there's so many more things to do nowadays. That's the trouble. And in our youth, the church was your center social area. Man, the Sunday schools back in the 50s were fuller than a lot of churches are in the services. Yeah. It was wonderful.
You want to tell me a little bit about your church? I know you played organ for a while.
I played quite a while.
A long while.
Yeah. Yes. I was 16, and my uncle, Lloyd Snyder, that's my dad's sister's husband, he was on the church council and wanted to know if I'd want to play the organ for the church. Well, I never played an organ. I played piano. So, but he said it pays $18.75. And I thought, oh, wow, $18.75 a year. That's a lot. And here, that was a month.
Wow.
So, of course, I snapped it up. And I kind of self-taught myself. But then later on, I did take a few lessons. But, yeah. So I started in November of 49. And then I didn't really quit here until June. I retired from this church in Elmore at June of 2008. So I almost had 60 years in there. So then I was looking around and I found St. Paul's UCC in Oak Harbor, and I really felt comfortable there. So I went there, not thinking of playing the organ though, just because I liked the church and it's what I needed at that time. But so finally I went, and then the following year, about in the fall, I was going to wait a whole year before I really joined a different church because that's a big decision. But my daughter says, well, are you ever going to go back? I said, no. So I joined there. And then that January, they started getting me to sub, and by September I had a full-time job. So we have 5 organists,
Oh, wow.
one for each Sunday and then a sub. So
That's nice. You don't have to
yes,
do every single
it's
one.
much better. Yes, because it's a lot of work when you got every service. So this works fine.
And which one were you at before St. John's?
St. John's,
Yeah.
you see, right in Elmore. Yep, that's where I was baptized, confirmed, everything. Yep, thought I'd die there. I did, but in a different way. I left. It wasn't.
Can you tell me anything about the different pastors they passed through since you've been there?
since in oh my gosh, lots of them. Some of the first services I played were in German. I had no idea where they were at or what they were doing. Yeah, I remember that because it was a Methodist, that little place where the lady has her museum. That used to be a German Methodist church, and so they would have German services in our church too at that time. And then later on, our St. John's bought that building and became the recreational place or something. Anyhow, that's history on that. But and I remember playing for when we'd have youth meetings in those days too, because there was nothing for kids to do but the church activities. They'd have all these different youth groups from different churches would get together, and that was big time.
Oh, cool.
And I remember him coming to Elmore once, and this is when I first was playing, and I was playing this hymn, and it was in four sharps, and all of a sudden I realized, oh no, it's a different key, so I just moved down and switched to the next key, and went. But oh yeah, I can tell you funny stories about weddings. I remember one lady, a young girl, was going to sing for this wedding, and she was going to sing the Lord's Prayer, and she had never heard of the Lord's Prayer. I thought, oh, I got problems. I couldn't believe it. She also came about 7:15, and the wedding was supposed to be at 7:30, and she wanted to go down and practice. Well, I time a half-hour program, and it's timed. You can't just pick songs. You got to have a time. So I refused to do that. And then she was singing, and the organ was here, and she was standing out here singing down there, and she had these old type metal music racks. Remember them?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so she was hanging onto that with her music book, and for some reason she lifted it up. And of course it came out of that little hole. So there she stood, and it was time to turn the page.
She couldn't.
So she just turned over to the organ and sat on top of the organ. Oh, I don't like weddings. I'll take a funeral any day. You get no complaints. They're much easier. Weddings are they're there. And they're so different now, too. You never know what the kids want and stuff. I remember there was one gal that galloped down the aisle. That was not respectful at all.
Gosh.
Yes, and the marriage didn't last either. And I used to keep track. I'm a kind of a anal person. I keep a lot of records. And so I keep track of everything I played and who sang and all that kind of stuff. Well, then they started getting divorced, which before they hadn't. So I put a big D on their page. And I don't do that anymore. Oh, things change. Yeah, but it's interesting. So I had a lot of good, and when I had my 50th anniversary, that was a big celebration. It was. I'll never forget it because it was like you died, because everybody came to see you, and they all said nice things about you. Only I was alive, but it was just like you were, that's the only time people. So it was really, the church was packed, and I had a lot of favorite people singing and stuff, and it was cool. That was a lot of fun with that. So I don't know, 49, so I'm going in over 60-some years now, so still going, but it takes more concentration with the memory going bad. But.
How many pastors were there in that time?
Oh,
A
you
lot
asked
of them.
about the pastor.
Oh, that's okay. I like the DB.
Yeah. Well, Reverend Schmidt, I remember him, and he was here a long time. Him and his wife, they were nice people. They're of course gone now, and they were German, and they had 2 daughters and a son, and the son married Joanne Waters. Do you remember Joanne Waters from here? Well, but then they got divorced. But anyhow, that's who they married. And then there was Reverend Von Brockett. I think he was there before Schmidt was there, but I didn't have him that long. And he was a nice young man. They just had one son. We had a lot of interim pastors. We had a German man from I can't remember all their names. I'd have to look them up. But he didn't talk German, but, he was the old German type in that days. And, of course, I played with Pastor Bach his whole lifetime. Yes, he's going to have my funeral, and I'm going to sing at his. It's a standing joke. And we did get together just the other Sunday for the first time since he retired, because they had to get an interim at one point. And so Pastor Bach went down to St. Paul's Church, and I think he was there about 2 years, so they finally got a permanent pastor. And so, anyhow, they needed another preacher because our pastor Dave, who's right now, the main preacher, we have two preachers down there. He had back surgery and he's been off 5 months. And the young guy he needed a week off, so who's been taking over, the other pastor. So anyhow, Pastor Bach came in to preach. And he has been helping with the calling because he loves to call on people. And so he's been helping the church's load with that while our other pastor is really off, although he's getting better now, hopefully. But so us two worked together for the first time since he retired. And he was there over 30-some years. That was the main one. And then one of the interims was the Pastor Carmen, who was very intelligent. He was a chef, and he was really good, big guy, but he had health problems. So he had to carry a oxygen thing. And this happened while he was there. He had breathing something problems. And so I made him a fancy red velvet carrier for his.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. And so we had him, and we had, and then who's the guy in Toledo? Oh, he's so wonderful. He's from the hills. He had this ukulele, and it's in such a battered, the box, the carrier that this is in, is held together with duct tape. But he would sit out on the front porch in bare feet and sing and play his ukulele. He's the most sincere, loving person there was. And he's got a church now out in Toledo, near the zoo. Oh, you're going to kill me. He's going to kill me if I forget his name. I'll think of it later. I can see him, and I've gone up to visit his church and stuff, and he was a dear. But we had a lady pastor. She wasn't there that long, but she was neat. So we've had a lot of, the last several years, we've had a lot of interims. When a preacher's there 30-some years, it's hard to replace because, you're just used to that guy, and it's hard to accept change because you haven't had to. And so it was quite a while before we got another pastor. So anyhow. But, so there were lots of pastors, probably more than, and then I know Pastor Beck, which is the Gieslers. Let's see, there's Edna Giesler, that's the mother that's still living, and then there's the Bruntz girl, and so many of them. Anyhow, their one daughter married a Beck, and I saw him not too long ago. He was down visiting St. Paul's. He's a younger man, but I think he's getting ready to retire too. So, I know a lot of preachers, and I know all these in the area, because in the older days, and this isn't happening now, the older days, the pastors, all the UCC pastors, like in Elliston and Oak Harbor and Elmore and Genoa, they'd meet all the time, and they were all kind of coming in at the same time, so they're the same age, and so they really related, and now they're coming together and they meet up at the coffee shop in the back, and they're just razzing each other. I mean, it's a great group. And their wives come in now too, and they're all retired. Hagemeyer and they're always razzing one another, and but now it doesn't seem you have that community working together as much as it used to be.
That's too bad.
Yeah, it is. But again, I don't know. Things change. Good old days. Yeah.
Were you involved in any of the organizations within the church or outside?
Oh, yeah. Oh, heavens, yes.
Too many.
Yeah, I did. Well, one thing when Shadell started up, they had a meeting because in our church, they wanted to get volunteers. And me and my big mouth spoke up. I said, well, the first thing you better fix is that corner lot. We were called the corner lot gang, where the sign is. Because the Boy Scouts originally were taking care of it, but then as the years went on, you know how that goes, and it was a mess. And I said, that's the first thing people see. So we ended up on the corner lot crew. So we worked on that. Pauline Nance did, and Evie Hanneman, and Joyce Nip from Lindsay, and we planted it. We kept it weed-free, and we'd water it and all that kind of stuff. But it's a hill. It's kind of on a hill. And as we got older, that got to be harder to manage for us older people. So anyhow, and several of them passed on, and we don't do that anymore. But I did a lot of volunteering at Shadell's in the beginning, but not anymore because, when you first retire and you're 60, you do everything. Yes. And you're physically able to at that point. But then when you get 70 and close to 80, say no. You just do different things. Yeah. So, yeah, and I was a Girl Scout at one time, and I was very active with the community choir, which the Weidners were in charge of. I don't know if you've heard about them. In fact, for one program, Paul even wrote a big play for it, songs and stuff for it. We sang in the Opera House. We did that in the Opera House. But we'd sing in a lot of concerts, and of course, when we had the celebration for '76, they were singing all over the place. That was really good. So I played for them, I'm very active. Was very active in schools. I played for. In fact, I'm still playing for Genoa and Woodmore schools. And this week we're starting the high school play, and I'm in the pit band there. So, yeah, I'm very involved with a lot of music things. Yeah. So I've done weddings. I've even made a CD for a wedding that was down in Florida on the beach.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing what all you can get involved doing. Yeah. So that's my life really is music. And I've met a lot of people that way. And I gave piano lessons for years and years. And I don't know these kids. They come up to me, oh, Mrs. Weidner. And of course, they have a little kid with them. I don't recognize half of them, but they remember me, of course. But, yeah, so it's very fulfilling, but
That's good.
it's a lot of work. Music is fun. It's like a family. You get to know everybody. Yeah.
Something that we've been asking everybody. What were you doing during the blizzard of '78?
The blizzard of '78, I was home, and my husband was coming home from Ocar. We worked at Fort Meadow, and he did get home, and we were in there. We were stuck in there, but we were okay. We didn't have a problem. But there was a lady on 163 in back of us that froze in her car, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. No, it was, but we survived. We were in our first house. Now, when they had that big storm that in the summer in July, we weren't home. We were up in Canada, and it was on the news. We were in Kitchener, Canada, and they mentioned Elmore in the news. And so when we got home, we found out that our freezer had gone out and things like that, but we weren't home for that storm. The blizzard we were.
Yeah, I remember that was out for a couple days.
Yes.
No power.
Yes, yeah. So, yeah. So we're still here.
What else do I have? I guess I was supposed to ask, has there been any people throughout Elmore, anybody interesting, somebody that stood out or anybody that affected you?
Oh, probably the people that work with music, like Bill Wysiski and Stacy Dettner. She's really been I'm like her mother since they're all younger than me. But I don't know. Pastor Bach, of course, was with me through a lot of stuff because he was with us when Bob died and all that stuff, and all the kids got confirmed and all that stuff. So he was a big person.
Any families that you remember?
Just my friends in general, I guess. Yeah. Because friends are important. They're sometimes more important than family. You can pick your friends. Family, you can't control. Yeah. But I remember Miss Mercer corrected me because I had a boyfriend in the 6th grade. That isn't a positive thing. that wasn't like kids are nowadays. Oh, believe me, we were so naive and we were good. It's scary. It's scary. We didn't dress like they do now, I'm beginning to talk like an old lady.
We will too eventually. So.
Yeah. Well, you just want good things for people. Yeah. And we used to go to shows. We used to love drive-ins because you could, the kids would put their nighties on and eat your popcorn in the car and stuff.
We still got one local, so.
Yeah. Well, I don't do that anymore. I have my TV and I can DVR it.
Yeah, I love DVR.
Yes, I do too. Yes, that's great. So, yeah, that's, as I say, there's good things in this age, but it's scary now, the way things are going now and what these kids are doing and how they can hurt one another. So, What scares me is this, like, the internet and the Facebook, they can just say nasty things about a person, and these kids are so sensitive. It's so damaging, and it's so quick. It's very scary.
Well, I think we're done here. Is there
That's
anything
fine.
else? Is there anything else you think of that you want to add that we might have missed? I didn't ask you.
Nothing that's gonna set the world on fire.
Alrighty.
I think you got enough to read through there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this.
That's okay.
We appreciate